Welcome to the ISM Rochester Lunch and Learn webinar series. Our speaker for today is Jane Tierney, who will be speaking on resilient supply chains, why your business needs one. We want to make this an interactive program, and we'd like to hear from you. So at the end, Jane will be taking some questions, so please put them in the chat or the Q&A area. And we will be recording this presentation, and we will be sending out the link later today with your continuing educational credit. So make sure you keep the continuing educational credit for your recertification. Now on to the presentation. I know Jane has been a speaker in the past, but I'll just review her bio shortly. Jane is the founder of her company, Purplelink, sharing with clients a better way to obtain value through the supply chain. Jane is an engineer with an MBA, Greenbelt, CPSM, and CPSD certifications. She also runs CPSM and CPSD training as well. In addition to running her business, she teaches operations and supply chain management courses in the California State University system and serves on the advisory board for the Operations and Supply Chain Management. In 2020, she co-founded the Southern California SCRM Council for Local Executives focused on supply chain risk management, which hosts an annual supply chain risk symposium. Jane is a speaker, author, and she offers monthly dynamic dialogue webinars and conducts workshops on various topics. At this point, I'm going to turn the program over to Jane.
Thanks, Kathy. Hi, ISM. I'm happy to be back with you guys. Hope you guys are all having a good day with some good weather and looking forward to a nice holiday season. I can't believe Thanksgiving was 2 weeks ago and here we are that much closer to Christmas. So time's going really, really quickly. But I'm going to talk today about resilience in supply chains, how you can make yours a little more resilient, and really what that means, because we hear that term, we hear agility and flexibility and resilience and all these things, but let's take a look at what those really mean. So Kathy introduced me. Thank you very much. As she said, I am a supply chain practitioner of many years. I have a background in operations and as an engineer. And what we do at Purplelink is we focus on the needs of our clients, which include assurance of supply, reducing cost in lots and lots of forms, putting some metrics in place so you can actually measure and see how well you're doing, a Lean Six Sigma approach, and overall supplier management. This is an area where I think there's always a lot of opportunity and doesn't get the recognition and the attention as it often does. So I'm happy to be back with you. I've met several of you in different webinars before, so I'm happy to see some of you again. So we're going to talk today about the resilience, as I said, the definition of that, what that means in the context of supply chains. I've got some pillars and some aspects of resilience to share with you, to talk to you how you can build resilience in your organization, and the benefits of doing this. And then I'm going to give away some prizes. So if you want to be part of the prize giveaway, and if you want the slides to this, Kathy's so kind to always put the recording on her YouTube channel. But if you'd like to be part of the prize raffle at the end, just email me at purplelink.co. There's no M there. And maybe Kathy, you could, yeah, thank you. You could put that in the chat. So if you want to do that, then you'll get a copy of the slides and you'll be eligible to win prizes. And if you don't want to do that yet, that's fine. You can just wait till the end and I'll give you another chance before I start the random number wheel of whatever. So let's just dive into resilience. I always go back to definitions and look at my Merriam-Webster and say, okay, what does this mean? What is this word supposed to mean? So the sources I reviewed when I put this presentation together first talk resilience of a supply chain in terms of capacity to resist and recover. And I think those two terms are important. To resist, which means either to evade or avoid disruptions or reduce the time between disruptions, which I know sometimes when I was in the corporate world, it seemed like we just got one problem solved and another one hit us upside of the head. So the time between those would also be to diminish that. And then to recover, to to get the disruption from disruption to containment, and then the speed and ability at which the business can return to full functionality after you experience that disruption, whatever full functionality looks like for your organization, for your particular company situation, whatever. So resist and recover. And we want to look at, limiting the impact of disruptions that do occur, because they are going to occur. Right? And I've been in supply chain a long time, and guess what? Stuff happens, and we do have disruptions. So we want these to be purposefully constructed. We really want to look at what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how we can do it better. I found a quote from PwC that said, it's not just about playing defense, it's also about playing offense. For those of you who are football fans, and I know there's a lot of football fans in your area, but what we want to do is, as we play offense, is to find that competitive advantage that shapes supply chain resilience and is focused on creating strategies that avoid disruptions as much as possible, and to minimize them so that they're little blips that we deal with instead of major catastrophes. So we want to be able to help our organization be prepared to respond quickly when these inevitable disruptions hit. So the speed of recovery is one thing, and I found this chart that I think is really interesting. When you look at it, they talk about being able to avoid disruptions, the containment when something does hit. You see that steep drop when all of a sudden things don't look so good. So this is over time, and you've got the disruption, which means you stop. The work is impacted. You're not able to continue in the fashion that you were doing before the disruption. So you drop down to some kind of other level of productivity, output, however you measure that. And then once you get it contained, then you're able to put the focus on finding a solution, whether it's a short-term, long-term solution, both, and then able to return. So that TR is the return time, and that's what we're really looking at in terms of studying these from an academic perspective. But what we're looking at from the business perspective is just that. How do I get back up and running to the level that I was before this stuff happened? So supply chains that are resilient work in different ways. They optimize production with supply chain planning, and that is a forward-looking approach. It's a forecast type thing that helps businesses anticipate the problems. And when you can anticipate, then you're enabled to be able to prepare for these various scenarios. You know your business, you know the things that happen and what might happen. None of us are really fortune tellers, and things like pandemics hit, and we just have to deal with those as they come up. And there's going to be some of that. But in most businesses, we have a pretty good idea of what kinds of impacts and disruptions to expect based on our previous experiences and based on our own environment. You guys are in a part of the world that gets some pretty bad snowstorms and things. So that happens not once in a blue moon, but it happens occasionally. And you're able to kind of just shake that off and move forward with that type of thing. Other things are a little more more disruptive because they're not as able to be planned for, but that's what we're looking for, to be able to diminish the impacts from disruptions and the problems that we encounter and improve our operations overall. So we're trying to understand what data is available, the news, what our competition is doing, sales reports, customer feedback, wherever you can get the data, get the information that you have, be able to leverage that and turn that into actions that you can take, things that you can monitor. So how do I check that and make sure that I'm paying attention? I grew up in the Midwest and on a farm, and as a farmer's daughter and in a farm family, we never went to bed until we checked the weather, because even though you kind of have an idea, it's very changeable. And you guys are probably the same way, especially in the wintertime. You want to check the weather and see what they're forecasting for the next day. and then make your plans and adjust anything that you had accordingly, depending on what the nice weatherman or the weather lady tells you. And then go to bed, sleep soundly, get up, and not be surprised if there's snow on the ground, or there's a thunderstorm in the Midwest and it's raining cats and dogs, or whatever your situation is. So analyze what's available, learn. When you go through these things, it's always important to say, okay, what did we learn from this, and what can we apply to that, from that situation, to adapt and improve and do things better. We've got a lot of things that we're hearing about: artificial intelligence, big data, Internet of Things, the blockchain, all of that. If you have access to that, can afford it, and can start to apply that to your business, then bravo, that's great. If you don't worry, because there's other people doing that, and there's other ways that you're going to see in the next few years to be able to acquire some of that power and put that into your business, no matter how big or how small. One of the things that resilient supply chains do is they diversify their suppliers and their manufacturing partners. I grew up in supply chain when it was no, we don't want multiple suppliers. Fewer suppliers is best. That might be a little bit outdated. It doesn't mean we want to have redundancies of 10 suppliers for every part that we manufacture or that we need, but it does say that we want to look at some redundancies that we can put in place, and some positioning of ourselves to be able to access suppliers' capabilities and capacities when we need them. So multiple suppliers, sometimes multiple locations, maybe better strategies, and making sure that you might have, say, for instance, 2 sheet metal suppliers. It used to be, oh, this is our primary supplier, and then we have a couple little that we use for random parts, unique parts, unicorn parts. And now it might be better to say, I've got enough parts, let's have 2 sheet metal suppliers. And rather than having a primary, we're going to have dual sources, dual capabilities. So if we do have a problem with one, we want the other one to be able to help bandage that and offset any disruptions that we have, and come to our aid and rescue to help us out. So that means having frank conversations with those suppliers and saying, hey, this is how I want to set my supply chain up. I need a supplier that can help me do these things, but I also need you to be able to do some things at a moment's notice and to help out. And so thinking about those things ahead of time, having those discussions, positions everybody in a better to be able to respond when and as needed. And these buffers, now we're talking about buffers in capacity, in people, in time, in space, in equipment, and different skills that you have in your people, so that if somebody is out, becomes sick, or leaves suddenly, that you're not brought to your knees because of that. You're able to recover quickly. And inventory buffers. That doesn't mean that just in time is a bad thing or is no longer applicable, but just in time and just in case are 2 different things. And you need to think about where your supplies are coming from, what the lead times are, what the cycle times are for the supplier to produce them, and make sure that you're having these discussions and understand this, so that you are prepared to recover quickly. And if that means some inventory buffers, that's not necessarily a terrible thing. And you don't have to carry all the inventory yourself. Suppliers can carry inventory a little bit. They're often willing to do some amount of that. And suppliers can carry some key parts and components to help reduce lead times, cycle times, and be able to help you recover more quickly. So think about those things and look at the holding cost of a little bit of inventory that might help you offset a lot of disruption cost. Because supply chain resilience really works kind of like this. You need a plan that's going to synchronize all the parts and the components, and actually understand how your supply chain is laid out. Understand what data is available, and data is not information. So look at both the data and the information, how quickly you can acquire it, how quickly you can apply it and what it helps you do, what it helps you understand, what it's telling you, and know that before the disruption hits, because then you can react more quickly and more correctly and get back on track. Diversify suppliers and your partners and make sure that you have capabilities in more than one location, and then put your buffers in place. So all of those things need to be done kind of at the same time, so that when you have something, you can work through that with different aspects. There are lots of perspectives, and we see this resistance and recovery as recurring themes in a lot of different places. So you need to look at your organization's capacity for resisting, capacity for recovering. What are the skills that you have in order to do that? What are the things that are in your manufacturing operations or in delivering your services that you can do to both resist and recover? And then proactively craft strategies. And then not only the strategies, but the plans and the processes that you're going to use to be resistant and to recover when and as you need to. There are 4 different levels of resilience. There's avoidance, containment, stabilization, and then return. So that shows that on that graph that we looked at before. The avoidance really isn't there. That graph that I showed you a few slides ago really is about, after it hits, containing it, getting stabilized, and then being able to return to some kind of normal. There's 4 pillars of resistance: agility, location, sustainability, culture. We're going to talk about these. And then there's other, and I've got pillars on here twice. That should not be, but we're going to look at that too, because we have a VUCA world that we live in, and vulnerability, uncertainty, ambiguity, and change. So we are going to look at these 5 pillars and look about how you can build that resilience in. So the levels of resilience there in this tree, resilience is at the top, and there's resistance and recovery, as we've talked about till now. So to be able to resist, you want to be focused on how you can avoid things. And then if you do encounter that, how you can contain it. So the more reaction time you have, and the better you can contain it, the faster you can contain it, then that makes you more resistant to that, because it doesn't become a catastrophe. It doesn't become a major problem. It's one of those everyday blips that we have in operations and supply chain, and you're able to deal with it. Then with the recovery end of it, we're looking more about stabilizing the rest of the business and getting back to a stable place with the affected area, and then how quickly you can return to that, again, that pre-disruption, pre-impact state, and get back to whatever your normal is. So when we look at our capacity to resist and our capacity to recover, if we're on the low end of that, both low on resistance and low on recovery, then we have a fragile area. This is your area of vulnerability, and this is where you want to say, what can we do to shore this up? Because this is the highest risk that we have, that fragile area. And then if we have low resistance, but we're pretty responsive, we can recover pretty quickly on that, then we're still vulnerable, but we are responsive and we are able to deal with that. That might be disruptions you've seen before, and things that you can do, that you have in place, things that you know, and you're able to do that, part of the standard operating procedure. If our resistance is high, but our recovery is slow, then we have to say, all right, we're going to be prepared for this, because it doesn't happen very often. It's not going to happen to that effect if the resistance is high. We're going to be blocking a lot of things and prevent them from smacking into us. But then we have to know that our recovery is going to be lower, and that therefore slower. I think out here in California, I think about things like fires and earthquakes. And if we don't have those often, but they're very impactful potentially. And so, if that does happen, it can take a long time to recover from a fire, say. And we have earthquakes a lot, but we don't have significant earthquakes. And so if we do get one of the bigger ones that has more impact, it may take a little longer to recover from that because the building might be impaired or something like that. And then if we have both resistance and capacity high, that makes us pretty tough. That makes us a pretty hardy organization, and we're not nearly as worried about things. We're not waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning thinking, oh my gosh, we didn't do this, or this might happen, or whatever. So that's really where we want to get to, that we have both high resistance capacity and a high recovery capacity. But that doesn't happen for every potential risk. So you need to look at these potential risks that you have, itemize those, and then assess your readiness to deal with those. So 4 pillars in this regard, they're things that you can do and things that you should do, and you want to be able to assess your supply chain as having these as foundational and as strong for the organization. So the first one of those is to be agile. You want to be quick to react. You want to be quick, first of all, to identify, oh, there's a potential problem, and then yes, we do have a problem. So the quicker that you can identify that and say, yes, that there's really something happening here, then the quicker that you can actually react and start to put your plans and mitigation strategies in place. So you want to be able to react to changes in demand, unforeseen changes, as well as projected changes. Sometimes there's a lot of seasonality, or there's a product or service that all of a sudden becomes very popular, or something that's popular that all of a sudden falls out of favor, and your changes in demand can swing pretty up and down lately. And things like the pandemic have shown us that, demand can either stop or triple literally overnight. So we want to be able to think about what might happen to our demand, what's happened before, why, and then what we can do to be able to react to that. So, and that quick reaction is what we're looking for when we talk about agility. So the other thing is to be able to really hone in on where in the supply chain your vulnerabilities are, and let's put together some strategies and possibly some redundancies in these areas, so that if I do have a problem in one area, it doesn't bring me to my knees, and I'm able to shore that up with some help from another area, another supplier, another location, another means like inventory buffers of keeping my product moving and my services being delivered as I have committed to my customers. So understand demand very well, and look again for markers that will tell you things are changing. Being able to expand and contract supplier networks, to have your suppliers ready to be able to increase and decrease production as needed frequently. Is if that's what your business is about, then make sure your key suppliers are on board, and you're not discussing how we can do this after the problem has already hit. You want to say, if we have issues, this is what we can do. And a lot of companies I'm seeing are putting clauses in contracts these days about, say plus and minus 10, 15, 20%. And they're having these discussions as they do their sourcing decisions. So it's not, oh yeah, this is our forecast, and we expect this to happen, but we might have swings as much as 20, even 40%. And what would we do in those cases? And then put into the contract that whatever level you feel like you can actually handle. And often it's as much as 20% up and down, and how quickly the supplier can react to that and start to help you out when you have a problem, because they are your partners and they are part of that supply chain. Another area really today is the sustainability, and sustainability is all about not just about the green, the eco-friendly things, but it's about the reducing the waste overall. So waste, even if it's greenery waste, or recycle waste, if you can do things with that. And it's also about being able to maintain compliance with all of the requirements that are changing and being added to businesses today. So we're looking at the environment not just in terms of green, but in terms of how do I stay compliant when they're passing laws on slave labor that I don't really know about. And maybe that's happening with one of my tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 suppliers. So what does that mean to me, and how do I deal with those things? So we're looking at that. How do I measure my carbon footprint? How do I coach my suppliers to measure their carbon footprint so that we can be able to respond to some of the requests and some of the inquiries we have, and be prepared to implement processes and procedures, so as these laws keep getting enacted and applied, that we're able to stay compliant. So we want to maintain that compliance, and then we want to stay there even with all the things changing. And then, as always, safety is job one. So we want a safe environment, but we also want an open environment at work where people are free to discuss issues and problems, as well as make suggestions for how things can be improved, and how the business can be run better, and how our output can be increased. In a study that I looked at for putting this together, 86% of execs in the retail world rank compensation as safety as their top priority. I worked in manufacturing, heavy manufacturing like aerospace and defense, as well as some tech manufacturing. Safety is always job one. So to keep our workers safe and keep the workplace safe, that's always the first piece of prioritization. But we also want to make sure that we can compensate our employees and our staff, and do the things that we can do. And the only way we can do that today is to reduce costs in other places. So we want to make sure that we're looking at all of those pillars together to be agile, localized, focused, be able to keep compliant, and then make sure our culture supports all of that. Because we are vulnerable in a lot of ways. So there's 5 aspects of resilience, and one of those is vulnerability. Vulnerability shows up in areas like bottlenecks. So where do we have a tendency to clump up or to slow down, or where is our flow, whether it's through services or manufacturing or both, where does that tend to clump or slow down and not be perfectly balanced? So where do we have an imbalance in our production lines? And that is taking outside of the production line and looking across the whole supply chain. Where do we have quality issues? Still, a lot of clients of mine, and a lot of companies that I see, don't really plot their quality incidents in a way that helps them identify trends. So looking at the data you have on quality, you really need to ask a lot of questions and say, where, a lot of Pareto charts, where are my quality incidents coming from? Where are the defects coming from? Are they coming from a single part? Are they coming from a supplier? How does each supplier look when it comes to the defects that we find? Is it one particular product line, one particular maybe design that we have that's very difficult to make, that might have tight tolerances or require some really sophisticated process to make that? Is it something that's like from a motherboard that's difficult to test for the supplier to test? Where are those incidents of defects, rejects coming from? And what do they look like, and how can we quantify that? And then how can I dig in and try to make some changes in that and improve my overall quality performance? The shocks of demand, which is shooting up or evaporating. And so, where are we vulnerable to those kinds of things? And not only what's happened in the past, because it's always easy to look in the rearview mirror and say, oh, now I understand, because I can see where I've been and why that might have happened. But think about what might happen going forward, all the what ifs, and not the crazy what ifs. If we have another pandemic, we still have COVID issues. And I was reading an article in the last couple of days that talked about how many areas are experiencing severe outbreaks of COVID. But so talk about that. What does that mean if we have outbreaks in different parts of the country? Excuse me. Does that hurt us? How can we react to that? What are the things that might happen that we are seeing happen maybe in other places? What if that affects us? What can we do about that? Customer complaints, again, an area to track and look for not just how many customer complaints we had, because that's in itself is a good number to tell you, are you having these complaints and at what kind of rate? But what's the correlation between these complaints? Are we getting complained about the same product, the same part in that product that's having problems that we could trace back to a single supplier? Is it a design issue? Is it a lack of test? Is it, what is it? So how do we get our arms around what those complaints are having common and what's driving those, and how can we reduce that? Productivity, which is simply our ratio of output versus input. So we divide the output by the input, and we have to look at what the inputs are. The inputs are manpower, their machine hours, their material dollars, their energy, they're all kinds of different things. And so and time is a good denominator for productivity. What's our output per hour, per week, per month? So do we have consistency there? So do we have some hours that we produce like crazy and everything's great? And then do we have some hours that unfortunately and unexpectedly our output drops to maybe even zero? So what is our productivity over time? How do we track that? And then how do we take that information and turn that into an activity to go make improvements in that area? We have all kinds of issues from import export and restrictions. I live in Los Angeles. We have two of the busiest ports in the world, Los Angeles and Long Beach, which many people think are one port, but it's actually two. But tons and tons of, literally tons and tons of products go through there every day, every hour, every minute. And so when we have bottlenecks from there, when we have clogs there, when we have issues that stop that flow, then that affects the rest of the country and the rest of the world often. So what are we looking at in order to be able to be prepared for some of these potential impacts? And then the culture overall. In supply chain resilience, 33% of managers rank this as high. So 33% of the execs across the country in one study says that this is high. 27% said it was very high. So when you add those together, that's 60% of the managers looking at resilience and saying, hey, this is an important thing. So when you're looking at that, you want to say, okay, so this is not an anomaly. This is not something that we are only concerned about. 60% of these top managers are looking at this. And then 41% said that this is a big topic in at least some part of the organization. So where it might not be their overall top 5 concern, top 10 concern, they're saying it is a top concern in at least part of the organization. So and the other factor here that I found that just kind of floored me is they said 85% of the companies surveyed indicate that this topic has increased in the last couple of years. So you would expect it to have increased at the onset of COVID in the 2020, 2021 timeframe. But from 2021 to 2022, they're still saying 85% of the companies are saying we're still seeing increases in the focus on resilience. So 2 other of these aspects, procurement and operations. So these always go together in the organization. They need to be working hand in hand together. I already talked about multiple sources, dual sources, but doing things like supplier audits, supplier ratings and scorecards. These are important aspects too of the business. And if you're not doing those, and many companies in 2020, we all quit doing audits because nobody was traveling and nobody was doing anything. It started coming back a little bit, but companies reduced their travel budget so much and nobody wants to boost those a lot. So the supplier audits aren't getting done as often as they were pre-COVID. And this is a big area of opportunity for companies to get back to doing that, rating their suppliers, doing their scorecards. And this is an area that we get busy and that activity falls to the bottom. And that is a big risk if we don't continue to have those dialogues with our suppliers, continue to give them feedback and get feedback from them on the relationship, the risk, the activities that are going on. So with operations, the same thing, dual multiple sources, making sure that you've got on-hand inventory that is reasonable. Your just-in-time might be not one day any longer. It might be 1 week, but it still doesn't have to be a month's worth. And again, look at your cycle time, look at the lead time. First of all, the lead time from your supplier, how quickly can you get it from them? But look at their cycle times and their lead times as well, and ask them information about that. And they should be willing to share that with you so that you can put a robust inventory supply chain in place so that you can be able to recover quickly. Look at capacity, how companies use their capacity and what's available, and how you can surge with some temp and overtime work if and as needed, or how you can cut back on things with temp work and different aspects, different strategies. So think subcontractors. One study found 90% of companies dual source their raw materials. So if you can do that, that's a great thing. 72% of companies in this study performed supplier audits, and almost 50% rated all their suppliers in some way, shape, and form. But about 40% rated only key suppliers, which is not a bad practice, and less than 10% did not rate suppliers at all. So we're seeing companies that are actually actively trying to rate something about at least a portion of their supply chains. In operations, 70% of companies dual and multiple source, 10 to 15% keep about 21 to 40 days of inventory, or they put agile capacity, what's called agile capacity, the ability to switch production type very quickly. So you can go from one to the other. Yet only 29% of companies say they've successfully aligned the 3 mitigation strategies successfully. So to be able to look at multiple sources, days of inventory, and capacity adjustments, companies are struggling doing all of those. So maybe they're doing one of them, but it's better if you can do all 3 of those. Companies are tracking cycle and lead times as well as reductions, but these are more volatile than I've ever seen them, especially the lead times. It can be, 6 weeks today, and then next week it can go to 10 weeks. So you want to keep track of those. And then overtime is something that companies track. So ask your suppliers about that and track that in your own business. And the last of these 5 aspects is demand and visibility. So we're looking at stock, we're looking at stock outs, our distribution partners. 80% of companies have high or medium visibility on stock outs, but only 40% of companies say that they have that same level of visibility on distribution partners. And 25% of the companies responded that they have visibility into their customers, and only 22 for customer stockouts and customer issues. So get closer to your customers and your suppliers and understand what their issues are. Put early warning signals in place, especially with suppliers. If they have an impact, if they have a disruption, you really would like them to let you know that they are experiencing that, because that might affect you very quickly. So look at what that is and how that might be handled, and get those early warning signals in place. So the visibility is very important. So to build a resilient supply chain, it starts with the basic kinds of things: processes, people, and technology. So think about forecasting. How much forecasting does your business do? In what level of detail? And can that be improved? Can you do more forecast error analysis and look at things that you're doing? There's a lot of real-time analytics and decision support tools these days that can help you do planning and help provide baseline data, which can justify investments in spending on supplier and commodity analysis and things like that. So tools to enhance processes for forecasting, for managing inventory, supplier relationship management. Supplier relationship management in many companies is still an afterthought or oh yeah, we do a little bit of that. It's something that you should be doing actively. And it doesn't mean that you have to devote a whole team of people to doing that. If you can do that, that's great. But it should be a part of the interactions that you have with your key buyers, your key category and commodity managers, and the managers of your procurement and material acquisition departments, as well as technical, quality, and operational executives and managers, to know their counterparts and understand what's going on with these suppliers. And then you should build these things into your sourcing and commodity management. Think about forecasting and inventory management as you source and as you choose your next supplier, and then as you manage your commodities and your categories. Get the people that have the right skills to be able to perform these tasks. Supplement your talent. Get engineers to help. Get marketing people. Get finance people. Don't be afraid to hire people that have different backgrounds into your supply chain function, because oftentimes people will really welcome the change, and you'll get different perspectives that really help make a more robust supply chain team. Look at commodities, categories, however you divide up your different components, and focus on these relationships. You cannot put enough time into supplier relationships and making sure that you're communicating, that you have an understanding of what they're doing and what they're being affected by, and let them know what your plans are and what you're trying to do, what your goals are. This is an excellent time of year when companies are putting their goals together, to be able to say, all right, let's sit down in January after our company has our goals and your company has your goals for 2024. Let's sit in January and talk about these goals and see how we can partner up with our suppliers and have a better chance of everybody achieving those goals. Technology is really important. There's lots and lots, as I said, of tools and techniques and companies and things like that that can help people make better decisions, do better planning and forecasting, and manage the risk. But at the core of that, you have to have people aware of this. You have to be setting a culture of risk management, risk identification, risk management, and risk-based decision making. So to build resilience, you want to define what that means, what that looks like for your supply chain. It's unique to every company, and it's based on your strengths and your capabilities, your weaknesses, and think about how you can leverage all those strengths and how you can look at the opportunities that are going to be open to you when you can build your resilience. Look at your product design, because everything starts with what you're making and how you're making it. So you might look at redesign options. You might change your policies about inventory to manage shortages or disruptions in that way. You might change suppliers if you have suppliers that aren't delivering the quality and the on-time delivery that you need. Update these design standards as much as you need to. Monitor the trends, look at the markets, and look at what's going on in the world. A lot of places, a lot of countries have been surprised by what comes out of the Ukraine and Russia and how that affects the rest of the world. Now we're seeing Israel that is in a mess and probably will stay in a mess for a while. So what comes from Israel? And people say, oh, that's a small country, that, not much going on there. That doesn't affect us at all. I would look again at the companies doing business in Israel, the kinds of things that Israel is providing. They are a vibrant GDP. They're, I think, number 20 in the world, so they are not completely insignificant. And there's a lot of companies that have been looking to increase their manufacturing in and with Israel. And so, the time to survive really refers to the amount of time it takes your business to get your supply chain back up and running to that required level. For example, the time to survive for some factories in China took about 3 weeks after the initial COVID outbreaks, and that is how long it took to get personal protective equipment, get safety protocols in place and all of that. And if that's 3 weeks, that's better than 3 months. But look at what that time to recover is. And that's where the metrics come in. They help you measure that, the time to survive, the time to recover, which gets you to your time to thrive. Because the time to recover is to get all your backlog cleared out. And there were several Chinese factories that were functioning in less than a month, running at a fraction of their capacity because of lost time and whatever, but others did not recover as quickly. So just because you can recover, if your suppliers can't recover and their suppliers can't recover and your customers aren't recovering, then you might be either still scrambling trying to get the product that you need for your customers, or your customers may put you on hold and say, we need more time to recover. So the time to thrive is really this evaluation of the company after emerging from some crisis. You're looking at the pre and the post crisis states of the business and asking yourself, are we stronger? And what did we learn during this disruption? And how can we apply that learning back in and change our responses if we need to be better next time? So we're looking at things like end-to-end visibility across the supply chain. That's one way to assess the resilience and see how that's working and how it's not. Stress testing, reassessment, do these what if scenarios and plan this, look at the risk, do your contingency plans and your simulations, because those are important and you learn a lot from those. CEO agendas, and we're looking at this in spades for 2024, that they're putting both resilience and efficiency on there, as well as the typical cost reductions, improvement in efficiency and productivity. Make sure you've got metrics that are looking at aspects of resilience, and you're balancing growth and cost metrics that are both required, and put those in your performance management system so that you're really giving yourself a fair assessment and giving yourself a chance to be really highly successful. We're looking at tools and capabilities. Make sure your workforce is being updated and your people are being trained and made aware of these things, and so that they're actually incorporating them into the work that they do every day. And then make sure your suppliers are keyed in and tied in and working with you. Because what I know is there's a better way to build resilience. Looking at increased operational efficiency is an important aspect of that. Shorter product development cycles, which always help companies, and expanding your capacity and giving yourself more flexible capacity. These are very positive benefits from being resilient. We look at companies that are resilient, they have higher productivity that's both achieved and maintained. So 93% of supply chain leaders said they invested in resilient strategy in 2020. Probably not something that they were looking at doing maybe in February of 2020, but by the end of February, they were investing in this. We want to reduce the risks across the supply chain and be able to optimize our processes and adapt our processes to be more resilient across the supply chain. We want to increase our customer satisfaction. It's all about what our customers need and want, and how they're going to respond, and how we can respond to them and their changes, so that we can maintain or expand our market share, and we can keep our business healthy and thriving. So we want to diminish impacts to customers, and are looking at what our competition is doing in that range. So we can have all kinds of disruptions, but as long as we can weather those and not pass those on to our customers, that's a very good thing. And that's what a lot of companies are looking at, is how can we be the tough intermediary and take all of these blows and not let our customers know, that we're taking these blows and that these things are happening. So not that we want to be the tough guy and the punching bag, but we sure want to be the buffer between everything that can happen in the world and our customers. We want to be able to satisfy our customers and make sure that our business survives. So that's my presentation. If you'd like a copy of these slides, and you want to be in this raffle that I'm going to do, then you need to send me an email at jane@purplelink.co. So what I do on my phone, I have this really nifty little thing called a random number generator. So I'm looking at who has sent me an email to be in the raffle. I'll give you about 30 more seconds to do that. And while I'm waiting for you to do that, I'm going to tell you that we've got some events coming up. I'm starting a CPSM Exam 1 class in January 2024. And because I'm in the Los Angeles area and you guys are in New York, this is all online. It starts on January 16th. And if you're an ISM member, you get a discount. So I don't have that link on my events my website yet, but I will get that done in the next week or two. And if you want to sign up for that, you can contact me directly at jane@purplelink.co, and I will be happy to get you that link. And I'll put it in the slides when I send those out. So you can have your CPSM certification by the end of 2024. I plan on doing all 3 exams next year. I'm also putting together a workshop on compliance and talking about that every organization needs a compliance team and what's changing in the world, not just meeting the SOX regulations, but a lot more than that. And then we're also putting together one for Lean and Six Sigma, how to put these in your supply chain, whether it's with your suppliers or other aspects of that. So let me just now count. I think I just got a couple more. Great. So let me pull out my random number generator. And the winner is going to be Dennis Cristiano. Dennis, are you still here? Because that's one of the requirements.
He is.
Good. Congratulations, Dennis. I just need you to send me another email and confirm, because I'm going to send you an e-card. So let me know if you want me to send this to the email, which email you want me to send the card to. Sometimes people enter the raffle with a business email, but they want the email sent to their personal email. So I will send that out. I will send out the slides. Kathy's going to send out the link for the recording. You'll also, if you've signed up, you'll also be signed up for my dynamic dialogue subscription. I do webinars once a month. I'm not doing anything in December. We start again in January, and that's going to be on the 23rd of January. I do them the 2nd or the 4th Tuesday of every month, and so you'll get information on that. And I always like to leave with a thought, and I really like this picture of the flower that's managed to sprout, even though it looks like lava, rock, or whatever. So we want to be like this flower, able to survive and thrive in any kind of harsh environment, any kinds of challenges that are thrown at us. Human beings overall are pretty resilient. And so this is what we want to do, and we want our organizations to be the same. So I wish you all a very happy holiday season and a terrific, successful, and happy 2024 for you and your families. And if there's questions, I'm happy to take questions, comments, or whatever.
Thank you, Jane. Yeah, I don't see any questions, just thank yous that are coming through. I do want to thank you for bringing another terrific topic to the Rochester ISM members, and also Buffalo, because Buffalo has joined us as well today, which we're very grateful to welcome you everybody from the Buffalo chapter. So at this point, I'll be ending the program. I just wanted to wish everybody a good holiday season, and thank you, Jane. And our next program for Rochester will be, our Lunch and Learn will be on January 9th. So I'll be sending out information on that shortly. But thank you all, and have a great day today.
Thanks, Kathy. Happy holidays to you and yours.
Thank you.